Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. It is from Canto 3, entitled The Status Quo, Chapter 1, Questions by Vidura, and this morning we're doing text 21. So without further ado, we'll start the class. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadari, Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana, Jamuna Tira Vandachari, Yamuna Tira Vandachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadari, Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana, Jamuna Tira Vandachari, Jamuna Tira Vandachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Jaya Radha Madhava kunja-vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava kunja-vihari. Jaya Om Vishnu Pad Paramhansa Parivrajakacharya Astottara Satasri Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramhansa Parivrajakacharya Astottara Satasri Divine Grace Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvatī Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। इस्कॉन फाउंडर आचार्य श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। मथुरा धाम की जय। नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय। जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। जगन्नाथ स्वामी की जय। गंगा माई की जय। जमुना माई की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। समवेद भक्त वृंद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga Krishna Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tira Swami Iti Namine Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Siddhartha Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti. Narayana Namaskritya Narun Chaivam Narottamam Devim Sarasvatī Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Nashta Prayesu Abhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Shivaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, Text 21. Tatrātha śuśrāva suhṛd-vinaṣṭiṁ yathā veṇuja-vahni-saṁśrayam saṁspardhayā dagdham athānuśocan sarasvatīṁ pratyag iyāya tūṣṇīm tatrātha śuśrāva suhṛd-vinaṣṭiṁ vanaṁ yathā veṇuja-vahni-saṁśrayam saṁspardhayā dagdham athānuśocan sarasvatīṁ pratyag iyāya tūṣṇīm tatrātha śuśrāva suhṛd-vinaṣṭiṁ vanaṁ yathā veṇuja-vahni-saṁśrayam saṁspardhayā dagdham athānuśocan sarasvatīṁ pratyag iyāya tūṣṇīm. Hare Krishna. Please chant.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
tatrātha śuśrāva suhṛd-vinaṣṭiṁ vanaṁ yathā veṇuja-vahni-saṁśrayam saṁspardhayā dagdham athānuśocan sarasvatīṁ pratyag iyāya tūṣṇīm. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
tatrātha suhṛd suhṛd-vinaṣṭiṁ vanaṁ yathā veṇuja-vahni-saṁśrayam saṁspardhayā dagdham athānuśocan sarasvatī pratyag iyāya tūṣṇīm. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Pariksit.
Hare Krishna.
tatrātha śuśrāva suhṛd-vinaṣṭiṁ vanaṁ yathā veṇuja-vahni-saṁśrayam saṁspardhayā dagdham athānuśocanam sarasvatīṁ pratyag iyāya tūṣṇīm. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Maybe one more. Okay. Word for word translation. Tatra, there. Ata, thereafter. Śuśrāva, heard. Suhṛd, kinsman. Vinaṣṭiṁ, all dead. Vanaṁ, forest. Yathā, as much as. Veṇuja-vahni, fire due to the bamboos. Saṁśrayam, friction with one another. Saṁspardhayā, by violent passion. Dagdham, burned. Yathā, thus. athānuśocan, grieving. Sarasvatīṁ, the river Sarasvatī. Pratyag, westward. Iyāya, went. Tūṣṇīm, silently. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. At the place of pilgrimage at Prabhāsa, it came to his knowledge that all his relatives had died due to violent passion, just as an entire forest burns due to fire produced by the friction of bamboos. After this, he proceeded west, where the river Sarasvatī flows. Reported by Srila Prabhupada. Both the Kauravas and the Yadavas were relatives of Vidura, and Vidura heard of the extinction due to fratricidal war. The comparison of the friction of forest bamboos to that of passionate human societies is appropriate. The whole world is compared to a forest. At any moment, there may be a flare-up of fire in the forest due to friction. No one goes to the forest to set it on fire, but due only to friction between bamboos, fire takes place and burns an entire forest. Similarly, in the greater forest of worldly transaction, the fire of war takes place because of the violent passion of the conditioned souls illusioned by the external energy. Such a worldly fire can be extinguished only by the water of the mercy cloud of saints, just as a forest fire can be extinguished only by rains falling from a cloud. Om Gyanati Virandasya Gyana Gyana Shalakaya Chakshu Amritam Jena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Adeshatarini Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayati Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Guratise Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. English translation again. At the place of pilgrimage at Prabhāsa, it came to his knowledge that all his relatives had died due to violent passion, just like an entire forest burns due to fire produced by the friction of bamboos. After this, he proceeded west, where the river Sarasvatī flows. Hare Krishna. So this is about Vidura's travels to places of pilgrimage after he left the palace at Hastinapur and of course left his position as prime minister also. He was prime minister for the government headed by the king, Tatrātha, who was his elder brother, but Dhritarashtra's son, Duryodhana, had insulted him. When Dhritarashtra summoned him for advice, and Vidura gave advice straight up to him, and mentioned that Duryodhana was going to be the cause of trouble, that he should not really associate himself with Duryodhana. He said it to Duryodhana's hearing, as fearless people usually do, and that caused Duryodhana to get angry, because he's already a demon, and demons get angry very easily. Even when you reason with them, just like Prabhupada gives the analogy, you give a snake milk, he becomes even more poisonous. So Duryodhana only thought of his own selfish motives, and anyone who was speaking anything against it was regarded as an enemy. Anybody that wanted to take the position of power was regarded as an enemy. So he was a cousin to Yudhishthira, but he regarded Yudhishthira as an enemy. This is what demons do. So anyway, in this situation, Vidura had been insulted by Duryodhana, and he has left, and he's going to places of pilgrimage. He's taken advantage of the fact that he's got the opportunity to leave the government full of people, some very saintly like Bhishma, and some very troublesome like Duryodhana and Karna and Shakuni and Duryodhana's brothers, with the exception of a couple of them who had their heads on straight, but they still didn't get listened to by Duryodhana. So in traveling to different places of pilgrimage, he arrived at, he means Vidura, arrived at Prabhāsa. And that's where he learned that all his relatives had died due to violent passion. The Yadavas fought against themselves, fratricidal war, civil war. Not because, let's back up and put it this way. It was actually because Krishna was wrapping up his pastimes and did not want the Yadu dynasty to keep staying at Dwarka. He wanted to wrap all of that up and go back to the spiritual world and take them with him to the spiritual world also. And of course, the physical body doesn't go to the spiritual world. Krishna is always in the spiritual body, so he can just go as is. But the rest have to leave their physical bodies on the earth and then go with their souls. So coming out of the body means they have to die. And that's just the way it is. And so Krishna arranged for them to go against each other and fight against each other. 560 million of them died at Prabhāsa. So when Vidura got there, then he got the news, because Vidura was related to them. So when he got the news, as it says here in the translation, after he heard the news, after he spent time at Prabhāsa, which is also a pilgrimage place, he proceeded west. We don't hear anything about him lamenting because of the war. He didn't. Well, is it because he's heartless? No, it's because of some things that he knows about very well. That is bound to happen. That's life. In this material world, when one comes here, we leave due to death. Some people take different bodies and still stay here in the material world. But we are being guided to leave this body and go back to the place where you don't take any more physical or subtle bodies, but you become the full, expanded soul, your original form and your original place of living, the spiritual world. It also is a place where there's no anxiety and everything is provided. No reason to be anxious, and everybody's good and loving. A wonderful place to be. But right now, we are in the material world, as was Vidura also. So, Kauravas and Yadavas were relatives of Vidura. And Vidura heard of how they had killed themselves and gotten away. Krishna's plan was to get them to leave. Not to leave to take other bodies, but to leave to go back to the spiritual world. So two are mentioned, Kauravas, the clan of Kauravas, and the clan of the Yadavas. And Vidura heard of their extinction due to fratricidal war. Well, there were fratricidal wars. The Kauravas died in one war, Yadavas died in one war, Kauravas died in one place of pilgrimage, Kurukshetra. Yadavas died in one place of pilgrimage, Prabhāsa. So there were two wars. And in that war in Kurukshetra, 640 million people died. 640 million. Can't wrap your mind around that number of devotees. That number of people. They died in that war. Pandavas were saved. Krishna told them they wouldn't die, and they didn't. In the war in Prabhāsa, those in Dwarka, the Kshatriyas fought against themselves. And this is how Krishna ended his pastimes. So they also died. So 560 million people died in Prabhāsa, 640 million people died in Kurukshetra. And if you add the two, that would be 1.2 billion people. Now, you might say, whoa, that many people died, and Krishna was present in both cases. In both wars, Krishna was present at that place that they fought, the place of pilgrimage. Why kill so many people? Well, Krishna does not look at death the way we do. Death, the way materialists do, let's put it that way. Devotees are still being trained to understand death for what it is. It is movement on the soul from one body to another, if the soul is staying in the material world. Take another body. It is the transition back to the spiritual world if a devotee is qualified to go home or qualified and gotten the mercy of the Lord by their efforts in devotion service. So Krishna looks at it as the souls leaving to go to a better situation. And so if you want a lot of people to go to, we want people to go to a better situation, well, it's best to have more people go to a better situation than less. So 1.2 billion people got a better situation in their next life. That's how Krishna looks at it. But we are kind of stuck in this material world. We really aren't stuck, but we think we are because we get too attached to things in the material world. And therefore, when things are being taken away from us, especially our lives being taken away from us in the material world, we think this is the most inappropriate and the most disturbing situation. It takes a while for the devotees begin to understand that death for a devotee means Krishna is coming to take me back home. This is why Vidura heard the news, but he didn't allow the news to bother him, because he looks at things from a spiritual standpoint, as does Krishna. Now, there is some description about how the wars broke out. The comparison of friction of forest bamboos. Friction of forest bamboos. Dry bamboo in the forest, when the wind blows and they start rubbing against each other, they can form sparks of fire. And the sparks of fire next to the bamboos themselves can trigger fire, small fire, But because the bamboos are dry, immediately the fire begins to spread because it burns easily. Mm. Anything that's dry burns easily. If it's flammable, it burns easily. So that's how forest fires usually start. Mm. So the analogy was made that it's interesting, the word friction is used. And now in American language, we also use the word friction for when people are disturbed with each other. Mm. It causes friction. When they disturb with each other, there's a likelihood that at least one of them will get angry. Mm. So the comparison of this friction of forest bamboos, that's why the word friction is disturbance. Mm. That's why that comparison is quite appropriate. So passionate human societies are compared here to bamboos that rub against each other and cause a fire. Mm. Srila Prabhupada says the whole world is compared to a forest. And at any moment, there may be a flare-up of fire in the forest due to friction. Mm. So in this world, war takes place because of violent passion of conditioned souls. Mm. And the illusion by the external energy. How? People want power. Nobody realizes when they are looking for power that their life is short, and the person looking for power one day won't even be around. And history has showed that so many times. Anyone that tried to get amass some power in the spirit in the this material world, in the end, they died, and everything went with them. Everything they lost. Mm. Everything, that means all of their aims went out with them, just like they went out also due to their. Mm. So the worldly fire, Srila Prabhupada says, can be extinguished only by the water, because the water is the one that extinguishes fire. The water of the mercy cloud of saints. It is people who are in the mode of goodness, and better yet, those who are practicing the mode of transcendence, like devotees are, that can extinguish or stop the worldly fire. As we're speaking now, the fire is raging. Different parts of the world, fire is already there. And other parts of the world, fire is starting. By how the nations are talking to each other. So this is what Vidura got when he got to Prabhāsa, this news. But a little bit before we go on about Vidura himself. Vidura is Yamaraj. And in the beginning of the purport, it says, Srila says, both the Kauravas and Yadavas, those who died in the fratricidal war, were relatives of Vidura. That's why Vidura got to know the news. So Vidura's marriage was to a Yadava princess. So the princess's name was Sulabha. And he was the daughter of King Devaka in that particular dynasty. Devaka was a Yadava king. And Vidura was also a Kaurava because he was the brother of Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra and Vidura and Pandu, they were all in the Kaurava dynasty. So that is how both dynasties are connected to Vidura. But even so, Vidura did not concern himself about the clan deaths, because as Yamaraj, he knew, as is explained in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 13, Dehinosmin yatā dehe komariyo param jara, tatā dehantara prapti, dhiras tatana muhyati. The embodied soul passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age. And similarly, the soul passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul, the sober person, is not bewildered by such a change. So a self-realized soul by Vidura wouldn't be too concerned about situations like death and the wars that caused the death. He's a self-realized soul. So yes, the body passes from small to teenage, medium, to an old, fully grown person. That's there. I used to quip and say, okay, small is a baby, and teenage is medium, and then the full grown is large. So it's like the soul goes from small to medium to large. But then at death, the soul goes to yet another body. If the soul is not made the move to go back to the spiritual world, like we're trying to do. So Vidura was not surprised by that because he's a self-realized soul and was not bewildered by such a change. And that tells us, especially at this time, there's so many Srila Prabhupada disciples, just like every week you hear one person has left the body. In one sense, it affects our emotions, especially those of us who know them, those particular devotees. But again, that's our mind playing that kind of game, connected with our emotions. But we also know that this person has lived a wonderful life, devoting themselves to the spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. And now they're going home. Therefore, it's like Srila Prabhupada has come to take them back home. So when we grieve because of the loss of that particular person and loss of their company, then we also use our intelligence to say, but he's going to a much better situation. And we ourselves, if we take our Krishna consciousness seriously, we'll be meeting them in a much nicer situation, in a nicer place, a place of no anxiety, the spiritual world. But in the meantime, here in the material world, there's some situations we have to go through. Now, in a lecture given in 1975 in Chicago by Srila Prabhupada, he was explaining why wars happen in this, not just the material world only, but especially this planet, because this is what we're used to, the planet we live in, Earth. He said, as long as human history is there, there must be war. You cannot avoid it. So he goes on to explain more. Because this is the material world, disagreement and misunderstanding must be there. We cannot avoid it. As a matter of fact, after the Second World War, there was a decision. Let the nations have an opportunity to talk to each other and iron out whatever the differences are before it flares up into a full-scale war. So let's form the United Nations. So the United Nations, they thought it was a good idea. It was formed. United Nations has a big building, skyscraper in New York City. And the flags of the different nations are all in the front. It all looks very colorful. But it also sent another message. Every country has its flag. Every country in the United Nations has its flag. So is that unity? We call it United Nations, but the flags are separate. The flags are not united. And they represent the countries. So is it really united? Srila Prabhupada shouted down. United Nations won't work. And he said, why? Because, and we should know this because it's easy to prove it. It doesn't work because they're trying to relate to each other at the material level. At the material level. But all disagreements come because of material level thinking. So the flags themselves show disunity. If it's united, there should be one flag, but there isn't. So it's a material world, there's disagreement, there's misunderstanding. You cannot avoid it. Why? Because one, everyone is not of the same standard. It's not possible. Some people are in the lower standard, some people are in the middle standard, and some people are in the high standard. Mm? That's what we call ignorance, passion, and goodness. Now, imagine having a conversation with a person, you are in the mode of goodness and they are in the mode of ignorance. How far would the conversation go in terms of reasoning? Can you reason with an ignorant person? If you're in the mode of goodness and they are in the mode of ignorance? Can you reason with a person going in the mode of goodness and they are in the mode of passion? Mm? So that's the situation, all the way up to the national level. Mm? So out of these three qualities, goodness, passion, and ignorance and passion are lower quality, base, low quality. Goodness at the material level, goodness is a first class quality at the material level. Mm? So the thing is, human life means we are born in these base qualities. A person that's born in Kali Yuga is looking at passion and ignorance. Many people are born in passion and ignorance. The majority of the people in the world are born that way. Because to be born in the mode of goodness, there has to be preparation for the pregnancy itself. Before the sex life begins, there has to be preparation. But there is no preparation. People just, oh, we're going to have children. Sometimes even just enjoying themselves sexually, and then the wife gets pregnant. And we haven't been talking about those who are married now. There's so many people who just get pregnant outside of marriage. So the child is immediately in the mode of passion and ignorance. Mm. So the overwhelming majority of people are not born in the first class quality. Mm. So that's the situation. Already there's passion and ignorance right from birth. Mm. Rarely do people take birth in the mode of goodness. Now, for devotees, not only do we take birth, or grihastas are charged to prepare for having children, not just in the mode of goodness, but even in the mode of transcendence. There is the samskara ritual called the Garbhadan samskara that the couple has to go through before seeding to get the woman, the wife, to be pregnant. Now, if there is no priest, to Prabhupada's mercy, there's no priest to perform that samskara, Garbhadan samskara, then by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, he says, chant the Hare Krishna mantra, japa, 50 times that day. Start early, plan, you and your spouse both do 50 rounds, and then you can, in fact, start the process of conception. And that will be put at the transcendental level. And the soul that will come out would be a soul of high quality, higher than even goodness. They'd be very, very, very much open to Krishna consciousness. That's the kind of soul that's sent. We don't have rights over the kind of soul that comes. That's determined outside our quote unquote jurisdiction. But if we invite a soul by that type of performance of either the japa or the Garbhadan sanskara, or both, as in the case and see myself, we do both, sanskara and chanting. Then the quality soul that comes, it's not hard to get them in Krishna consciousness at all. Because then the soul that is on its way back to Godhead, maybe the last life they did not totally complete what it took to go back. And they need to continue to have already, they are already open to Krishna consciousness. That's the kind of soul that will come in the family. Very easy to raise that person. Their character is very good. And then, of course, Krishna consciousness is very, very, very much open and accepted by them. So that's what we have to do. So, more to goodness for the overall majority of the population in the world, even mode of goodness is very rare. Some Christians that are very devout may get a mode of goodness type person, but transcendence, only devotees. So, as says in Kali Yuga, Kalau Sudha Samava, everybody is in the Sudha. Sudha is fourth class, Brahman first class, Kshatriya second class, Vaishya third class, and Shudra fourth class. So everybody is usually, everyone, that is the majority of people. Even some people, devotees are born in fourth class, and they needed to hear about Krishna consciousness. And if they were still following in the previous life, they will continue that. So what happens? If we don't try to elevate our children from the fourth class up to the first class, level, Brahman level, then how will there be peace? We keep people in fourth class or even degrade them to fifth class. Then crime happens because people are fifth class and even sixth class. We'll explain what those are. A person is already born Shudra. Janmana jayate Shudra. You have to reform him, Srila Prabhupada says. Samskara, the performance, the chanting in Kali Yuga is our, in one sense, sanskara. That's what we have to do in order to raise the consciousness of our children and raise the consciousness of people who come to the temple to want to be part of the movement. But before then, many people are inclined to intoxication, illicit sex, gambling, drinking, meat eating. These are all pseudo qualities, or less than that. Now, we talked about Shudra being fourth class, and they are fifth class and the sixth class. So Shudras is fourth class, but they are starting at that level. And in a place, in a society where there is Brahman, Kshatriya, and Vaishya, then the Shudras can even follow or serve those three upper classes and get purified that way, especially the Brahmins, because the Brahmins are guides, they're guides, they're teachers, they're gurus. So Shudras can be brought up to a higher level. But if the society doesn't do that, then the society degrades the people who are already Shudras to even a lower level. They become fifth class. And fifth class are mlechas. Mlechas are meat eaters. And that is a situation happening in many countries around the world. Meat eaters, they eat chicken, they eat beef, they eat lamb, they eat all of those kind of things. Mlechas. Mlechas yavanas. Lower than the fifth class is a sixth class called the chandalas. Chandalas are dog eaters. So that's the situation. Many, many, many people in the world are now mlechas and yavanas, meat eaters. A little bit of guidance is happening now where people are beginning to be vegetarian. And soon as that comes in, then passion is being lowered a little bit and people are beginning to connect more with the mode of goodness just by being vegetarian. Passion decreases, and goodness increases just from the change of diet. People say you are what you eat. So if you eat an animal that's violent, subtly, it affects the person's consciousness also. My Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Maharaj, wrote Spiritual Warrior series, 6 books. And the last one, Spiritual Warrior 6, he titled it Beyond Fanaticism, Terrorism, and War, Discovering the Peace Solution. So in chapter 7, he's saying that in this age of Kali, the propensity for mercy is almost nil. There are 4 Pillars of religion: austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. Austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. And as Kali Yuga proceeds, austerity, cleanliness, and mercy will be gone. People don't want to perform anything austere in order to elevate their consciousness towards Krishna. People are not clean. Many people don't take baths. Maybe some people take baths once a week. A Brahmin is supposed to take a bath 3 times a day, at least 2. And in Kali Yuga now, it's got to the point where Srila Prabhupada allowed 1. He was taking a bath twice a day, morning and in the evening. And in some homes, I know when I was growing up, my little nephews and stuff, little boys are very frisky. Of course, we give all of them a bath in the morning, and then they would play around. So when in the evening they come all so dirty, so clearly they know, and we know, we go right back to the bathroom and take a bath for the evening also. So they were doing twice a day. At least once a day, that should be there. So the propensity for mercy is almost nil. So people are not merciful towards each other. And if they're not merciful towards each other, they want things their own way. It's my way or the highway. And what happens? Fighting. Fighting between men and at the national level, that's what we call war. Men do not understand that because they unrestrictedly kill so many animals, they also must be slaughtered like animals in big wars. This information is not known to a majority of people who are, as we call, lechas and yavanas. Many people are not killing animals themselves, but they're supporting the business. They are the butchers who are killing the animals, but people are buying them. Therefore, the butchers are staying in business. You don't buy the animal, why would the butcher kill them? But some people are doing that. Therefore, we're also, those who are yavanas, lechas, meat eaters, are implicated in this whole business of animal killing. Therefore, there is, you're going to have to pay for it. For the things that you do. It's like that. Karma is like that. Negative karma. So we slaughter animals, they have to be slaughtered. The people who slaughter animals, they are vicious. And all you see is they say inhumanity, man's inhumanity to man. But the animals are also beings that matter. And we should not do that to them. Kill them without restriction. So like every 5 to 10 years, there's a war, big war. Now, United Nations was formed to try to prevent that. Has it worked? There are big wars now, and bigger ones even being planned. And even in the war, sometimes soldiers are kept, the prisoners of war, soldiers that are kept, they put in concentration camps, used for experiments of diseases, and sometimes they're killed in very cruel ways. And these are reactions brought about by unrestricted animal killing. So demoniac persons who are proud, they don't know the laws of nature or the laws of God. Therefore, they unrestrictedly kill poor animals, not caring for them. This is why Buddhism started. Lord Buddha came to stop animal killing. Therefore, as is explained in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, divine and the demoniac natures, from text 7 on, things are explained just as we should be about. Krishna is saying this. Those who are demoniac don't know what is to be done and what is not to be done. There is neither cleanliness, nor proper behavior, nor truth found in them. It is pathetic sometimes when devotees become untruthful. Very, 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 very sad. That is a habit that has to go, and it has to go, and the sooner the better. Mm. We have to be trustworthy. We have to be reliable. Mm. In Kali Yuga, austerity, cleanliness, and mercy are all compromised. And now truth is also being compromised. And devotees should not live like that. Be straightforward in the dealings. Just like Vidura was, straightforward. Talking to the tatrātha, the Duryodhana was no good for him. Hmm? Demons say that this world is unreal, no foundation, no God in control. That's what they say. Hmm? It's just produced of sex desire and has no other cause than lust. Well, that's why mortal passion is so prevalent. Hmm? And when the demons are in control, you can tell how things pan out. Hmm? And they do things in secrecy and they do things through deception. So this is the situation we're in. Should we play into that? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We should do the opposite. So Srila Prabhupada says, or translates in chapter 16, Bhagavad Gita, text 9. So following such conclusions, demoniac people, they have no intelligence. They've lost themselves, literally. They engage in unbeneficial, horrible works meant to destroy the world. This is what they're trying. But here it's a cycle that the devotees need to understand. We'll say this and then end it. There's a cycle here in the material world. Once you come in the material world, you're right in that cycle. There's no getting out of it unless you leave the material world. The demons and some people who take the Krishna consciousness and become devotees, they're here in the material world. When there are others that are trying through religion to become, to stay in the mode of goodness, material goodness, they're all here in the material world. The demons want to control. So they always plan in different ways to take control of the planets that they're in. That is their way of life. They don't want God to be the one that is accepted to be in control. They want to be the ones in control. So they make different plans. And they are destructive plans. Mm-hmm. And so they will try that and they will go on with it. But after a point, as we've seen in so many situations that happened when Krishna was here, they get defeated. But when they get defeated, that means for a period of time, there'll be a relatively higher degree of peace. But then, guess what the demons do? They regroup and start again. Another situation like that. So as long as we're in the material world, there would be a situation of the demons trying to take control and Krishna with the demigods fighting them and bringing them down, whatever their plans with, blowing that plans to smithereens, and the demoniac people start again. They are here. The demons are the ones in the lower planets of the universe. Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Taltala, Matala, Rasatala, and Patala. They're here. 7 planets for them. So, in one sense, you can say, unless the universe is destroyed, these, unless Lord Brahma goes to sleep at night and those are destroyed, they're not going anywhere. Even when they're destroyed, when Lord Brahma creates again, the demons are put in the same lower planets. And again, they start their plans to try to take over. They live life without putting God in the center. They want to push God to the side, and they control things. That's the way it is in the material world. So as long as we're in the material world, what we're saying is that this kind of situation involving war, it's not going to go away. So there's only one solution. Leave the material world. That's why Srila Prabhupada started his magazine, Back to Godhead. So the way to do about it is to become Krishna conscious and to stay Krishna conscious, both. Don't come in, look at it and say, oh, I'm trying. No, be determined to stay Krishna conscious, doing everything that it takes that we've been told by Guru to do. Chant the holy name and try to induce others to do the same. The devotee is not supposed to be selfish. Krishna consciousness is a way out. And so when the devotee is convinced, the person is convinced that being a devotee is the best, and they start living a devotee life, they should also try to help others to come into. This is what Krishna gets impressed with those who try to make others Krishna conscious. More mercy is obtained from Krishna the more we try to get others to be Krishna conscious. We also should look forward to going back to Godhead, knowing now that the demons never stop their plans here. We only get temporarily put down and then they start again. It's a question of having to get out of this material world. So we should look forward to going back to material world going back to Godhead by remembering Krishna always. Remembering Krishna is very important. We should pray to remember Krishna, especially at the time of death. So we can go back to Godhead. And we should also make a vow in our own minds never to return to the material world again. Make a vow not to return to the material world ever again. The demons are here. They plan. They cause a lot of trouble. Hiranyakashipu caused a lot of trouble. Ravana caused a lot of trouble. And there are small-time demons here trying to cause a lot of trouble. And then things just get overturned for them. And they get defeated. And they regroup. And they start again. So as long as the material world is in existence, for the times that it's in existence, when Mahavishnu has breathed out and all these material universes are there, the demons are going to do what they're going to do. So that is the situation. We live here. So nobody should be surprised that there's war. War because people are yavanas, mlechas. They are unkind to animals. They slaughter them and eat, even though we're supposed to be vegetarian. They slaughter and eat. And then there is karmic reaction. And the karmic reaction is they get slaughtered. You slaughter, you get slaughtered. That's just the way it is. And people who slaughter, they've got to the point of slaughter animals. They've got to the point where they know the animal has a life. The animal deserves to live. But then they kill the animals. And so they get to the point of now killing not becoming such a big thing. Well, as soon as that behavior becomes embedded in the mind and in the heart of that person, they will begin to kill others, including human beings, and not think twice about it. They won't. And on a large scale, that's what becomes war. And we know now there are some countries that kill their own people. What's going on right now? They don't care. Why? Because the inhumanity to man started with people being inhumane towards or unkind towards animals, especially the cow. And people like beef, and that's why we're struggling. There are other things too that shouldn't be, but people have allowed it, and in some countries they made it law. They've agreed to it, but it is not the right thing to do. You cannot kill babies in the womb, but some countries are allowing it. So this is what's going on. This is all part of paying. The reactions are part of paying for those kind of things. So we have a lot to do, not just go back to Godhead, but try to change the consciousness of people also. One person at a time, that's okay. Read Srila Prabhupada's books, give them to others to read, and then they become Krishna conscious, and then help everyone to stay Krishna conscious by being helpful to everyone. In that way, we'll do our part, but Krishna will be impressed with us, Guru will be impressed with us, and then when we leave, they take us back home. So that is the situation. It's a disturbing situation in the world now, but it is not something that is surprising. It happens over and over and over again because there are demons in the lower part of the universe and they cause us trouble all of the time. So it's no place to stay. The material world is simply no place to stay. You have to go get out. So that's our news for today. Message for today. Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. So if there are questions or comments that the devotees want to make, you certainly, this is the time to unmute yourself and either ask a question or make a comment. Hare Krishna. Any questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisance. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Okay.
Thank you for such a nice class and lot of reminders and many points to ponder upon. Towards the end, you were mentioning about like people killing their own, and so at one point, I have even heard like somewhere in the world they have even started eating fetus, like so. Many times, like we feel that this is extreme. You know, people marrying some car, Eiffel Tower. We feel that is all very extreme. But you know, somewhere this kind of consciousness spreads around the world slowly. And we don't know when it comes to our place. Like, and then, like all of a sudden, we feel, Arey, how did this happen in our own, like, you know, close vicinity? Somewhere in the world it is happening. So, you know, as you're saying that it is a need of the hour that we spread Krishna consciousness very strongly, and you know, as much as possible, and more people can be connected to it. Where it would be very nice. So, yeah, that was something I was just thinking. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, you mentioned another part of how people are going after fetuses and babies, and yeah, some people are being kidnapped, little kids being kidnapped, and this is what happens to them. Yeah, there's a lot of demonic activity, but demonic activities cannot be the permanent situation even in the material world. After a while, Krishna brings down the demons. But it's all the collective consciousness of the people in general. When the people get fed up and tired and they see the situation they're in is difficult and they turn their attention to Krishna, just like Draupadi turned her attention to Krishna when the demons, Dushasana and Duryodhana, were trying to, and this is one person, but her activity is very much an activity that she reminds us of what to do. We turn to Krishna. There are people here in the United States that are praying like anything for the country itself, And the Lord answers that. Those prayers are heard. And so it's very, the activity is now very fluid. Fluid means one thing after another is happening throughout the whole world because there's supposed to be a change back to more goodness. And so the ignorance has to go and the passion has to go. And the way it's being done is that the Prabhupada talked about the demons going after each other because they also like power. They like to be the ones on top. So anyway, that's the craziness in the material world. If you don't like that, it disturbs you. Good. That means you don't like it, so you leave. Go back to Godhead. That's why Srila Prabhupada is turning us towards Krishna and giving us mercy so we can even chant 16 rounds and not 64 rounds. That's what is supposed to chant 64 rounds. Srila Prabhupada was chanting that. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatī Thakur, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they were all chanting 64 rounds. Now it's been reduced by the mercy of the Lord. The Lord's devotee. The Lord permitted Srila Prabhupada to have us chant like that. So take advantage of the situation because this world's not going to get better. Hare Krishna. Thank you for your comments. Any other questions or comments? If not, then thank you very much for coming on. Hare Krishna. Don't be too disturbed by it because devotees are protected, but we have to make a difference in the world by spreading. We have not only goodness, we have transcendence, even higher than goodness, and a way to get out of this crazy world that the demons, are and cause problems. We have a way out. So spread the word through preaching, and then Krishna will be merciful towards us, Guru will be merciful towards us, and then we get to leave. And then, so it is 15th chapter, Krishna has already said, you go to the spiritual world, you don't come back to this material world again. You don't come back again. So we are in a good situation in that sense, good future situation. But right now, we have work to do. Hare Krishna. Any final comments or questions? Okay, thank you very much for coming on today. We all learned. Situation is current. It's not the best thing, but in one sense, it's also very good because we get the chance with so much leeway, so much mercy built into the devotee life. We have to take advantage of it. That's all. Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sundibhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna.